now, welcome to the Patriot Pulse podcast.
Good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, June 3rd. Hard to believe it's June already, isn't it, Fred?
Time's flying.
Yeah, it is really almost halfway through the year. So this is episode 262 of the Patriot Pulse podcast. And don't forget, we also simulcast still two guys drinking coffee on Facebook. And you can find us all over the place. We have a special guest today, and I noticed that when she went back in the green room, we lost her camera. So, there she is. She's back. All right. Our special guest today is Nancy Orticelli. She's from up in West Seneca, New York. And this is a return appearance for her. She was back. She was on our podcast back in February, but we brought her back on based on a Facebook post I saw her make, and it really piqued some interest. So I wanted her to come back on. We're going to be talking about the whole Israel situation. So, but before we get into that, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. Just as I had mentioned, we are on a couple different Facebook pages, but we're also on X, Rumble, Kick, Twitch, YouTube, and OBBM Network on the Bradford TV channel. So you can find us all over the place. But one thing that it seems to be unique or not unique, universal across those is the fact that we do get shadow banned. People still have to search for us sometimes. So if you can help us overcome those algorithms that are shadow banning us if you're on Facebook, click like or share. If you're on Rumble or X, subscribe to our channels. And that will help us overcome the algorithms that are severely, limiting our reach. Let's put it that way. So before we get into introducing our guest today, just want to do a little bit of business with America here and show a little 30-second ad of one of our supporters.
Need to get your brand noticed, remembered, and loved? At Everything Printed Promo, we turn your logo into walking, talking, shareable billboards. Whatever the occasion, we make you look amazing every time. Pens, shirts, drinkware, tech gadgets, you dream it, we print it perfectly. Visit everythingprintedpromo.com or call 888-619-9286 today. First-time customers get 15% off. Let's make your brand unforgettable.
Okay, so we got that little bit of business out of the way. And as I mentioned, our guest today is Nancy Orticelli. And Nancy is a friend of the show, like I say, has been on with us before. And we were talking last time about faith and politics and still along that same line. But Nancy has many irons in the fire. Just to give you a little bit of background on her. In addition to being a wife and a mother of two, she serves on the executive board of the Erie County Conservative Committee. She's also the chairperson of the West Seneca Town Conservative Committee. And if that's not enough, is also the president of the Constitutional Coalition. And I guess you could say her day job, she also works for New York Assemblyman David DiPietro. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. I'll ask Nancy for a clarification on that when we bring her on screen. But Nancy has a unique ability to blend faith and politics and can look at the world through a biblical lens, as we try to do as well. We're excited to have her back on the show with us today. And Nancy, thank you for joining us again today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
So good to have you here. So I probably just absolutely destroyed David's last name. Give me the correct pronunciation.
You were correct the second time. DiPietro.
Okay.
Yes.
that IE in there, I wasn't sure how to. All right. So I wanted to clarify that in case he catches this podcast and he says, boy, you slandered my name. So anyways, again, thank you for joining us. In that Facebook post that you did, you were talking about reading the Old Testament, and I've actually got the Facebook post in front of me here. You see the nation of Israel, you talk about it making mistakes, not only as in the past, we can go back through and see how they had all sorts of problems, but, could they be making mistakes again in modern day. And that really piqued my interest. So before we get into any of the topics and questions that we might have, expand a little bit on what you were talking about, Israel making mistakes and throughout history and the possibility of it continuing even into today.
So, if you study the Bible, you see the recurring theme throughout the Old and the New Testament where the Lord is there for his people. He gives them guidance, he gives them rules to follow, tells them if they don't do X, Y, and Z, then this is going to happen. And they constantly did X, Y, and Z. And so they were taken into captivity, they were involved in wars, and it's a parallel of our own lives, our own spiritual walk. God tells us to do X, Y, and Z, and we don't do it, and we suffer the consequences. And Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And people are humans. And so, yes, of course, the nation of Israel is going to make mistakes today, just like they did back then, just like we all do.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point, because there's a lot of different opinions about Israel. You know, on it's really divisive even in this country. There are people that say in many of our elected politicians, you know, support Israel no matter what. And then we got other people that are saying, you know, we're not so sure because we're wondering if Israel is, you know, gaining too much control over our government. And so there's a lot of, I guess the point I'm trying to make is there's a lot of different opinions, both in our elected representatives or everyday people about what Israel is. I'll even go back to the you know, the I'll say conspiracy theory of Charlie Kirk. You know, he was trying to walk back from Israel. I'm not saying there's any correlation here, but it's just coincidental that he was walking back from his ties with Israel, and then he is assassinated. Take that for what it will. Make your own, you know, draw your own conclusions there. But it makes you wonder, okay, we're called as Christians, I believe, because in the Bible, we have both the Old Testament and the New Testament. We are called as Christians to support the people of Israel, the Jewish people. Would you agree with that, Fred? Would you agree with that?
I'll go back to the beginning. When Israel was established, God said, I'm going to make you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great amongst the nation. And those who bless you, I will bless you. And those who curse you, I will curse you. He clearly says that in the scripture. But then if you want to get a little more revelation, what does Jesus say about it? God is still the same today, yesterday, and forever. So he never gave up on Israel. Leaders come and go, and they make mistakes, but God never changes. Just remember that.
I agree.
Well, then let me ask you this then. Can we make a distinction between the Israeli government and the Jewish people, the people of Israel, the people who live in Israel? In other words, can we still be for the Jewish nation of Israel and have a problem with the Jewish government, the Israeli government? What do you think?
I think it's very easy. The Bible says as many are called and few are chosen. There are many people who out there who are called themselves Christians, but they're not on the right path. So men make mistakes, they fall, but God never changes. So right now, what you're seeing is the leadership that's making mistakes. You're not seeing the chosen people of God making mistakes.
That's absolutely right. And I think from a biblical perspective, it's important to distinguish between a government and a nation and a people. And the Bible repeatedly treated rulers and governments and populations as separate things. God would often judge the leaders of Israel while still loving and preserving the people of Israel.
Absolutely.
And you can see in Jeremiah, the Lord said, he condemned Israel's rulers. He said, woe to the shepherds who destroy and scatter the sheep of my pasture. He was condemning the leaders, but still, it doesn't mean that, in my opinion, you take that and you are against the nation then, because the Bible also, not only does it say, I'll bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you, there's a clear command for us to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And I think that a lot of Christian patriots are losing sight of those two commands about blessing and cursing and praying for the peace, and instead are just going on this rampage of condemning Israel is the bad guy in everybody's story, whether it's true or not. And it's a little ridiculous. It's getting to be, maybe it's not, maybe it's just something else, but nope, everything is Israel. It's low IQ anti-Semites is what it is, in my opinion.
And again, you can use, the term anti-Semite in and of itself is more defined as being against the Jewish people. And I keep drawing the distinction between the Jewish people, that you can question what the Israeli government is doing without being an anti-Semite. Wouldn't you think?
Even the prophets did. I remember the prophet Nathan went and confronted King David, over things. You confront, you call things out, but you have to keep your own heart in check. I think that the people's hearts are being hardened, but let's also realize that this is going to happen. We were told that this was going to happen with the nation of Israel, that people were going to hate the nation and the people because of these things. So even though it's wrong, and we see that, we also read the signs of the times, and even so, come quickly, Lord. I mean, I feel like, that's where we're headed.
And the thing is, you got to look at it like this. Saul was God's chosen. But even Saul didn't like God's decision to make David the king after him, and he tried to kill him. This was a man that was chosen by God, and he chose to run it a different way. But God said, oh, well, I'm going to show you. And he did. He lost. In the end, David became king.
Yes.
I lost my train of thought while you were talking there, Fred. My mind was going in a different direction. With the people of Israel. Oh, I know where I was going with that. So let me ask you this: how much, and this is my own theory, we had a show not too long ago, and I titled it the Muslim problem, in that this country is, in my opinion only, being more and more influenced by Islam, by radical Islamics, whether they be in government or just on the streets doing protests. And it's just like during the whole scamdemic and the shutdown and all that, when all the do you remember when the colleges in New York City were being Jewish people were, students were being attacked, basically? They were shutting down universities, and it was all pro-Palestine, anti-Israel. So I would suggest, and I'd like both of your opinions on this, I would like to suggest that a lot, if not most, of the anti-Israel rhetoric is being fomented by Muslims, Islamic clerics, influencers in this country.
Yeah.
I think it's the biggest problem the entire world has right now. And I think that people are being distracted by so many things. And I think that when you look at that religion, and once again, it's not every, same with Israel, with Jews, it's not every person who's an Arab or from an Arab nation. It is that faction that is taking over, and their goal, and it's not a secret, their goal is to destroy the West, to occupy and destroy. I have never heard anybody from Israel chanting death to Americans, but I have heard a lot of people who are Muslim chanting death to Americans. And like you said, you are seeing it we're being permeated in every level of society in the United States. It's already happened in Europe. I mean, Europe is done. And I think that if we don't get our heads straight with this anti-Israel rhetoric, we're going to be conquered before we know it by
Exactly.
the Muslim nation.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. I mean, Zach said something about what I said about David. He's exactly right, too. God even said that David was his chosen. But even David messed up. If David was alive today, they would have crucified him for the stuff that David did. I mean, he committed adultery. He did all kinds of stuff wrong. Had a man killed just to get to his wife. I mean, David made mistakes, but David did one thing that nobody else knows how to do. He knew how to repent.
That's it. Yep. That's
Absolutely.
the key. Well,
Yeah,
and I
go
do
ahead.
think, people, I can get into more political issues whenever you're ready.
Go ahead.
And it's not,
Go for it.
Go for it. Yeah.
There's people who are posting this article online that was purely an opinion piece. And it's about a supposed U.S. Israeli alliance where they're saying that the two armies are going to be united and our military is going to be united based on the NDAA agreement. It's not an agreement, it's legislation. It's in a bill that's passed every year in Congress. And what it is it's treaties basically between countries. And we have these treaties. It's the National Defense Authorization Act. We have these treaties with many countries. But because people are so hyper focused and on the word Israel, now they're like, oh, we've got this with Israel. We've had this with Israel. We have this with Canada. We have this with the UK. We have this with Japan. We have this with Australia. And there is nothing in that says our militaries are going to be united and we have one person. It's crazy what people believe without researching. And this NDA for 2027 does involve other countries: Israel, Ukraine, NATO, Iraq, Afghanistan. And people are going to be like, well, that's not good either. Yes, it is. You're not understanding what this is. This is support that we give them and they give us in the event that something happens. And in return, we are given access to research. We're given access to intelligence, national intelligence. We're because of Israel developing their weapons and developing their military, they actually have to buy it all from us. So in that treaty, we are getting something back from Israel. Our industrial complexes, our military industrial complexes are benefiting from this treaty with Israel. It's also our biggest and strongest ally in the Middle East, where it is absolutely unstable. And don't think that if Israel wasn't there to stop a lot of it, we wouldn't have been invaded already. It would have spread and spread and spread. And so this NDAA that people are losing their minds about is nothing new. It's been there since 1948, and it's just a continuation of all of this. But people are just finding out, so they think it's new, and it's like low IQ is what I'm sorry. And maybe that's offensive, but if you can't take the time to do that research and see, and I will say that Israel does receive probably the most of our monetary aid than most countries, except for Taiwan. Taiwan is going to be getting more financially from our nation in the next few years than Israel. And that's a whole other story and a whole other issue. But everyone thinks it's just Israel. They're all upset about AIPAC. AIPAC is a lobbyist group. There are hundreds of lobbyist groups in our government, and they can go and they can lobby. That is completely legal. I do think they should register as a foreign lobbyist group, but they haven't. But everyone thinks it's the only one. I would like everyone to do some research and look into what Muslim nations and Muslim lobbyist groups are out there right now and see if it's as equal influence as AIPAC is.
Right.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'll tell you what, my own personal opinion, I think I I think we'd be a lot better off if we did away with lobbyists in Washington altogether.
Well, I do too, but I also live in the real world and know that that's
Yeah.
not going to happen. Just like
Well,
everyone says there should be a two-party system. Well, there is. And so I don't know how you change that. So we
Yeah.
have to learn to work within the parameters of what we live in and
Well,
influence.
the other thing too, we have to, and I'll put some of the onus on this on our elected officials. We have to, just like we want our normal everyday citizens to do their own research and to be aware of what's going on.
Mhm.
You know, even though there's lobbyists out there and they have the ear of all these elected officials, you know, we have to demand that our elected officials still continue to do what is best for the United States rather than what is best for the people giving the most money.
Yeah.
So let
if
me
you
ask
will.
you this. Let me ask you this, Jim. So when you say that, and I hear you, you want us to do what's best for the United States, and people are like, America first, America first. When in
Mhm.
actuality, they are America only, and that's dangerous in this world. You cannot be an island unto yourself
Yeah.
and think that you will never be attacked or bad things happen. So when we say things like, is giving aid to Israel beneficial to the United States? We want you to do what's best for us. I believe that is what's best for us. I believe that is what is keeping the Muslim invasion at bay. I believe that our aid to Israel is what is helping keep somewhat stability in the Middle East right now. And so, yes, that is good for us, because another thing that I think people don't realize is that because of our treaty and our alliance with Israel, we don't have to have military bases in Israel. Israel defends itself and defends our interests there as well. They represent us there as well, so we don't have to have military bases there. And there's so many layers to what we get from having this alliance with Israel, and people just don't see it. So I believe what else is beneficial to us? Israel is at the top of their game as far as weapons development. Look at David's sling, the Iron Dome, the arrow, the research and the knowledge that they have about, defending themselves from multiple drone attacks. They share that intelligence with us. And yes, that isn't happening here in the United States, but why do we think that will never happen, even 10, 20, 30, 40 years in the future? We have that intelligence. We have that knowledge now because of our life. So yes, that is beneficial for America.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'll go back to the beginning. Like I said, God says he's the same today, yesterday, and forever. He says, go and bless the world and make it fruitful, multiply, take dominion, subdue everything, every living thing, fish, birds, sea, all over the earth. And the only way for us to get the gospel all over the earth is to have connections with all of the earth. So you just can't be in America. You got to be everywhere.
Right.
Not necessarily fighting everywhere, but we're supposed to subdue everywhere with the gospel.
To your point, Nancy, on the idea of is our connection with Israel in the best interest of the United States? I can't disagree with that, but I also, at the same time, I go back to the Constitution, and I'm an originalist when it comes to the Constitution. I believe wholly in that single big document instead of the 3,000 page annotated document that we have now. And the Constitution didn't bar us from dealing with other countries, but basically it dealt more with treaties and trade. And part of the treaties could be mutually beneficial defense treaties, for example. So as long as we keep it within the bounds of the Constitution, I don't have problems with any of that. what I do have problems with, and this doesn't go for just Israel, it goes for any nation, let's say, other than that's outside the United States, is that when it comes to, and I understand the distinction between America first and America only, but again, I go back to my comment on the treaty idea. It's not America only. We have to live within the country, but when our elected officials raise their hand and swear to defend the Constitution and to defend the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, then I think it's also incumbent upon them to analyze everything we're doing and be able to draw the line and saying, okay, maybe maybe this is going a little too far, or maybe this isn't constitutional, or maybe this, we have to support our allies. I agree with that. All over the world, we want to work together, but we don't want to become a one world order either. So I think it's a very, very thin tightrope that we walk between supporting, being constitutional, being good allies, and then going off that tightrope and going into some areas that we shouldn't be going.
Well, let's look at Israel today. Okay, so after everything I've said, everyone would probably think that I'm like Israel and there's no criticism. Absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with a lot of things that Netanyahu has done recently. Right. I do not agree with what they're doing there. I'm going to say, I'm not there, and we only have, secondhand news. There are some horrible things that have been done to the Palestinians, 100%. Yeah. And I don't condone that at all. And you look at the nation of Israel, and they are the largest in abortions in the entire world. They have the most abortions in the entire world. It's a fact. And it is completely free. Oh, Google it. Wow. Which country?
I thought we were. I'm sorry.
We're not. It's Israel. And then they're having a big, I don't know if they already did it, but they were having a big Pride LGBTQ rally on the Dead Sea. And it was going to be this huge thing. And they are a nation that needs Jesus. But that doesn't mean that Jesus, like you said, Fred, that Jesus has abandoned them. He has not. And he never will. He will allow things to happen to bring them back to repentance, which may be why they're facing all this hate right now from the United States of America. It could be God's judgment because of the gross sin that is in that nation. And right. that's what people, have to understand. And it's hard for people who don't believe in the Lord because they don't get it. But we see that this was going to happen, and God is allowing these things to happen because he's jealous for them. They are the apple of his eye. Doesn't mean they can do no wrong. My children are the apple of my eye, but man, have they done wrong? You know what I mean? And I've had to punish. And so it's the same thing. So I am not carte blanche, let Israel do whatever they want. Absolutely not. But I also understand the benefit of being an ally. And I also understand the benefit of being a Christian and doing what the Lord says.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree. Well, do you think, and I think I know the answer to this, but I'll ask both of you again. There's a lot of criticism that Israel has too much influence over our government. Is that a fair statement, or is that an overreaction? I'm asking the question. I don't even have an opinion on it because I don't know. Like you said, I'm not in Washington. I'm not making the decisions, just like we're not in Israel. But when I see, all right, I believe in freedom of speech, okay, and freedom of discussion, and the only way we move forward is to have open and honest discussions. And agree, we can agree to disagree and move on and still be friends and so on and so forth. But so much I'm seeing that if anybody questions Israel, I'm not talking about speaking against them or you know, condemning them, but just let's have a discussion. If you want, they can't have discussions because the narrative is just shut down. The conversation is shut down, and I'm not really sure if that's a good thing or I don't think it's a good thing. I think all discussion is healthy.
I don't think it's shut down between you and me. I think it's just shut down between the government influence that they have. And I think right now leadership is taking advantage of the fact that they know they have a lot of Christian support, regardless of what's going on right now. They know they have Christian support, but that's fragile. And it's written that they're going to stand alone at some point.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's the thing that's going to happen. You can't stop it. It's going to happen. So what is this guy just setting up the stage? Who knows?
So I think as a citizen, it's reasonable. We have to understand there's a difference between, is Israel controlling our government, or are they having influence on our government? And it's reasonable to scrutinize foreign aid and lobbying and campaign finance and foreign policy decisions, military commitments. It's okay. But then those questions should be asked of every government relationship, whether it's Israel, the Ukraine, Saudi Arabia, China. Why are we only focusing on Israel? You think China doesn't have influence? I don't think they're controlling our government, these countries, but I do believe that they have influence. And, but that's not unusual. That's been since the beginning of time. Other countries have influence on other countries based on mutual interests. And it's just a buzzword. It's a buzz phrase. They're controlling the government. There's no credible instance where I have seen that's because of Israel. I mean, maybe it's say election outcomes, but I mean, just because they donated money to somebody, that's going to change somebody's mind on who they vote for. They say, well, AIPAC, funded the campaign against Thomas Massie, whom I love. I love Thomas Massie. And they're saying they funded the campaign. So you're telling me because they gave X amount of dollars, that changed all these people's minds to vote against Thomas Massie? That doesn't make sense to me. Do you know what I mean? I'm sorry?
I said I didn't get none of that money.
Right. I mean, I know it goes to like at campaign ads and commercials and all this stuff, but those people all knew who he was. It wasn't like he was an unknown that didn't get his name out there and he needed $1 billion to do that. He's well known. He's an incumbent. And like I said, I know that I love Thomas Massie, and there was no amount of revenue that anybody could have given his opponent that would have made me not vote for Thomas Massie.
Right.
So I think that when money influences an election is when you have an unknown and they need to get their name out there. Like in New York, we have Bruce Blakeman against Kathy Hochul. Bruce needs money because not everybody knows who he is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Kathy doesn't need it. Everybody unfortunately knows who she is. And, so in this instance, that doesn't fly for me, that the money given to Thomas Massie's opponent, because people aren't stupid and they know he's world known. So how is Israel influencing our government? Give me one credible thing. And if I see that, I'm like, wow, you're right. But nobody's shown it to me.
Right.
Well, let me go back for a minute then, Nancy, because you had mentioned the term low IQ, but I'll go back to a term that Rush Limbaugh used: low information voters. Okay, so I feel that our country is full of low information voters. In other words, they don't take the time to research the candidates. They don't take the time to do the research on issues that are facing our country, and because of these low information voters, they are heavily influenced by what they see on mainstream media or
Yes.
the
Exactly.
ads and so on and so forth. So when it comes to, and I'll agree with you on Thomas Massey, you know, uh, he had a 98% lifetime scorecard with the John Birch Society of
Mhm.
following the Constitution in his voting.
Mhm.
And and it was not just APAC, it was all the other NGOs underneath them that just flooded the Kentucky airwaves with anti-Massey rhetoric and campaign ads. So from that point of view, it's a two-part problem. The first part is way too much money to influence one way or another, and also the low information voter that is susceptible to that kind of propaganda.
Right, but I'll give it to you in two different ways. I believe it's because our public education is not teaching people how to research anymore.
Yep.
They're just taking whatever they hear. Our kids are not being taught true history. We had historians out there who call themselves historical people, and all they studied was hip hop, and that's all they studied, and they're considered a historian. So they don't even study real American history, and they're considered a historian. How is that even possible? But that is happening today.
Yes.
And that's
Well,
the influence that they have over the young people. By throwing something up on the screen, they'll believe it instead of teaching them to be, thinkers for themselves. They're being taught to believe what they see on the screen.
interesting thought just popped in my head then. Could this whole, whether it be the Israel, the American, Muslim, and America, and all these different situations going on, be symptomatic of another problem? If you go back to the whole Communist Manifesto, the idea is to, well, first of all, take control of the educational process, because when you
Absolutely.
get to minds of the children, you've got the future generations of the country. It's destroying the nuclear family. It's taking, it's making government the god instead. Well, actually, there is no God, so government has to be the god. So could this be a symptom of a larger problem, uh, in that there are people fighting for the destruction of this country,
Absolutely.
Yes.
and this is one way to do it, by causing strife and division amongst ourselves?
Yes. It's just one part of a larger plan. And you're talking about low information voters. I work for a New York State Assemblyman, and it shocks me when adults call our office and ask questions about my New York State Assemblyman, his job. They want him to do something about the IRS. And I have to say, well, that's federal, and this is state, and I have to teach civics while
Right.
I'm on the phone, which is why in 2020 I started a homeschooling co-op during lockdown, and it's still going today. And I teach civics every Monday morning for these kids, and we're just doing the basics, the jobs. The people don't know. They have no idea. They think that they think that you know Donald Trump can just, the Trump supporters originally can just go in and bring a hammer to everything, and because he didn't, now they're against him. But do you understand civics? Do you understand that there's checks and balances? Do you understand that there's a constitutional way to do things? Do you understand that if he does this, and then the next person who comes in, if they're a socialist, then they can do it and do it? It's People just have no clue. And I do want to say this before I forget about Thomas Massey.
Go ahead.
I don't think it's a bad thing that he lost,
Me
because
either.
I think he's able to speak out a little bit more. I don't think he's done. I think he may be doing something bigger. And
This is
I
exactly what I said. Go ahead.
yeah. And if we think that he's done, people don't know who Thomas Massey is, because I
Exactly.
think that I think it's a good thing when the door closes, God will open another one.
Every time.
But I do have a criticism with him and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Boebert, stop, and Nancy Mace. Stop saying that you have the names in the Epstein files and saying that you're going to release them, just do it, because you're
Just do it.
politicized. You're playing politics with this whole situation, just what you're accusing of the administration of doing.
And I agree. I think Massey, on his integrity alone, he could step away and come back and run in another form. And I guarantee you, he will win on his integrity alone. Don't start the little petty fights and don't even fight. Let your integrity speak for yourself. I think he should come back in another way and just don't get involved in the little petty fights that are going on.
100%.
There's already talk of Massey in 28.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree. He's not going to go away.
And I don't want him
to. Yeah. Well, but I think the whole thing, regardless, I mean, if you believe in the Lord, he's got his, if he's not directing the steps of all this going on, there's still the promise that he works for good for those that love him. So regardless of what happens, we have to believe that good will come out of it. Absolutely. But again, going back to the going back to the whole influence thing, I think that's where, again, it's the low information voter that is more the problem. How do we teach people to think for themselves? We do it through podcasts like this. We do it through things that you're doing, Nancy, but we still only get to a fraction of the population. When mainstream media is dying, I mean, it really is. It's going to be a slow death, but people don't believe what they're seeing on TV all the time through the news channels. So where do we go from here? How do we change the minds? How do we not change the minds? How do we get the truth out? About not just Israel, about Islam, about all the forces are coming against this country. Because I always try to look at our podcast as coming up with solutions, or at least suggesting solutions. So is it just an educational issue?
It's a huge part.
Well, I mean, what more can you do? And I think that it's also not getting discouraged. It's so easily to get discouraged. And I mean, I go through mountains and valleys all the time where I'm done. I just want to be a grandma to my grandson. I just want to, do this and that. But then I always get pulled back in. And it's just people like us, like we're not famous. We're not naive to that fact. You know what I mean? But we're doing what we can in our sphere of influence here. Me in New York, where you are, and things like this, like coalitions, uniting together and finding each other and just speaking. And even if we change one person, that's worth it.
Yeah. And I think it comes down to something very simple. My pastor used to say it, and each one reach one.
Yes.
Stop trying to reach the person that's sitting in the pulpit next to you. He's in the same mindset. Find somebody that doesn't think like you and try and change that person.
I do see people trying to do that on social media, and the minute that they get attacked, they enter into this argument. And I refuse. I don't block anybody and I don't censor anybody, but I will not get in. Maybe I'll make one comment, but I will not. I let other people answer and comment, and hopefully they read and they see and they can, maybe have their minds changed. But yeah.
Well, I encourage people to think for themselves. In other words, you may not agree with me in the end, but at least think. At least use the mechanism inside your head that God gave you. It's called a brain. To think about issues and draw, come to your own fact-based conclusions, and then stand by them, because we're not, listen, we're not homogenous. We're never all going to agree, because what they say, there's an adage that says something about if two people completely agree on everything, one of them is unnecessary. So
well, and when you hear something, ask yourself the question. Like I said, when people say Israel's controlling our country, ask yourself okay, how? Find a solid, concrete thing to either support or to destroy that claim. And then say, are there any other countries doing this? And see if that's, and see, okay, well, maybe this isn't so outrageous then that I thought it was, because this seems to be the way, you know what I mean? Ask the question instead of just making a blanket wild statement. Back it up with proof.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And as you can see, most of the time when they question a lot of these protesters, they have no idea why they're protesting.
No idea.
Zero, nothing. They don't even know what they're doing. They're just doing it because they're getting paid.
Yep.
Well, sure. How else do you get professionally printed signs, thousands of them distributed across the country in a moment's notice?
Within a day.
Yeah. It's
the whole nation within a day.
Wild.
And again, it comes back to the whole idea of is they're using this to divide the country, to destroy it. United States, if we're going to be destroyed, it's going to be destroyed from within,
from the inside.
And we have to come back together as a people and say that's not going to happen. And again, also we said this thousands of times, Fred, on this podcast.
Yeah.
We aren't fighting a physical war. We're fighting a spiritual war. We're fighting against a realm and principalities that they can only be fought on a spiritual level. So,
that's right.
Well, I'll tell you what, Nancy, I appreciate you coming on. I had mentioned to Nancy earlier, instead of going the full hour, I wanted to spend the last few minutes of our podcast today talking about a new podcast that I'm doing that's coming up, calling The Local Angle. But Nancy, I appreciate you being on with us, and I want to stay in touch. I want to learn a little bit more. Maybe we'll take this offline here and talk about your coalitions that you're involved with up in New York State, and because there are a lot of things going on in Pennsylvania too, and it comes down to getting people working together, to fight for what they believe in, what's right, and so on. So I want to learn more about that from you. So I'll connect with you offline if that's all right.
Of course.
So,
and you're starting your own podcast. Have you have a name for it yet?
It'll still be Coalition Radio. Maybe we'll change radio to something. But like I said, we've been doing it for 6 years and people are used to it. So I'll reach out to you guys.
Yeah, let us know, because we'll definitely promote it on our social media as well.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, before we leave, we always end our podcast with a prayer. And this is going to be a little out of order because we're going to continue on for a few extra minutes. But Fred is our prayer warrior, Nancy, and I always call on him to close us out in prayer. And I want to do this out of order because we always lift up our guests and what they're doing and their efforts as part of our prayer. So, Fred, even though it's out of order, would you lead us in a word of prayer?
All right. Thank you, Lord, for this day and for this word. This is so revelation. This was a good subject for me today, Lord. I pray for Diana, you protect her and what they're doing with their podcast, that you would bless her with many viewers and that we would grow and get to know each other better, Lord. And I continue to bring the darkness to the light, so that we could see the truth. And the Lord, give us a wisdom on how we can attack this enemy who's trying to destroy us. We know this is not man, this is spiritual. So we know that you are the way. And we ask, Lord, for your blessing and your guidance in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. And again, thank you, Nancy. We will stay in touch and have you back on again. Okay.
God bless.
All right. God bless you too. All right. Bye now. Okay. That was a great conversation. I mean, she shed some light on some things with Israel that I think we oftentimes forget, that they are a great ally. We share a lot of things together, and it's important to keep that line open. So anyways, I want to spend this last couple minutes, if you haven't heard already, based on everything that's going on local, we have listeners on this podcast that go all across the country and even some up in Canada and in other parts of the world. but we wanted to, how do I want to say this? I wanted to start a podcast that was going to talk about local issues because there are a lot of them going on. And so I started this idea of the local angle, and that's what it's called. And what I want to do is I want to talk about it, and hopefully, I don't know if I'll be able to do it for the first one, but I want this to be a call-in show where people can actually dial in, make their comments, ask questions, so on and so forth. But there's a ton of topics that affect us locally, and as they say, all politics is local. And so the local angler is going to be looking at issues that directly affect Bradford, Pennsylvania, first of all, McKean County, as we go out a little bit beyond our borders of the 16701, and Pennsylvania as it impacts our local area, because things that are going on in Harrisburg definitely impact what happens in Bradford, Pennsylvania. And there won't be any topics that are off limits. I'm sure we'll be talking about things like school taxes going up when at the same time they're closing or proposing to close another school. We'll be talking about data centers and alternative power, where they're trying to turn our forest lands of McKean County into solar farms. So there's a ton of information. And I told Fred earlier, Fred gets up way, way early in the morning, and this one is going to be a little bit late for Fred, I think. So, but Fred, if you got insomnia, you're always welcome to come on. But this will be starting tonight, by the way. We'll be airing the local angle from 7 to 8 at least, maybe into 9. And again, I don't know if I'll have the bugs worked out on the call-in portion tonight.
Yeah.
But that's my goal, is to have a call-in show, and maybe some guests down the road. But it's more of an idea that the people calling in will be the guests on the show, because they're going to be the ones that are talking about what issues are important to them. So, and the other thing too, Facebook has a rule. 2 rules, as a matter of fact, for doing a live show on your platform or your page. We do have a page called The Local Angle. You can look it up on Facebook and find us. And rule number 1 is that you have to have the page up for a minimum of 60 days before you can go live. Now, there's nothing I can do about that, because that's dictated by the calendar. We started the page, I think it was on May 15th, something like that. So it's going to be July 15th before we can go live on that page. Plus, the second rule they have is that you have to have at least 100 followers on your page. Right now, we stand at about 58. So I'm going to ask anybody, whether you're in the Bradford area or not, if you're watching this show on any of the platforms we're on, go to Facebook, look up Local Angle, and follow it. And it'll help us to get to that 100 point, so we can at least go live. What happens after that will all be organic. If we do a good job on the podcast, then we'll get followers. If not, then it'll just maybe die a slow, ugly death. I don't know, but we'll give it our best shot.
Right.
So that's it. We can't go live until July, but we need 100 followers, and that you can help us out with. But in the meantime, starting tonight, we will be broadcasting on all the same platforms that we do for this podcast. So the 2 Facebook pages, 2 Guys Drinking Coffee and the Patriot Pulse, it'll be on there. It'll also be on Rumble. It'll be on X. It'll be in Twitch, Kick. It'll be recorded on OBBM Network, but it'll be live on YouTube as well. So until we can go live under the name of the Local Angle, we will be broadcasting on our existing channels.
And what day is that again?
That is going to be every Wednesday. And the reason being is on Wednesday mornings, I convert my office here to a studio. And I figure if I'm going to do that once during the week, I might as well have my other podcast on Wednesday evenings.
Gotcha.
So it'll be every Wednesday starting at 7 p.m. called The Local Angle. And hopefully we'll get some good participation. We'll get some good viewership, and we'll see where it goes from there, because it really is just bringing out all the local news and giving people a platform to talk about it. And we're going to keep it civil,
Right. That's what I was worried about, pre-screening your calls somewhat.
Well, I'll have my finger on the button. So, one thing you'll notice on this podcast for 5 years, I don't think once we've ever dropped an F-bomb.
Right.
And there's a purpose for that. I don't like that kind of vulgarity, and I think it is actually detracts from the conversation. So we'll ask people to keep it clean, be civil, and just engage in the conversation.
Right.
So with that said, Fred, thank you very much for helping out today. I think this was a great conversation, actually. It's just Nancy brought a lot of good ideas and good thoughts to the conversation, and I always appreciate engaging in conversation with her. So thank you to everybody that was on today. We see a lot of names on here. We had Brian and Myrna and Zach, just going down. George, Diane had a lot, and Fran was on.
Mm-hmm.
So we appreciate everybody coming on and listening. And again, catch The Local Angle tonight at 7 p.m. on these same channels. And until then, we'll be back next week. Next week I'm trying to see here if we have I'm working on a couple guests. There's an attorney that's coming up that has agreed to come on our show. I just haven't got her lined up. So next week, it may just be you and I talking, Fred.
Okay.
But that's good. We haven't done that in a long, long, long time. So thank you, everybody, thanks everybody for joining us today. And as we always say, it's going to be a nice day. We've had a stretch of good weather here in Bradford, so we're appreciative of that. But wherever you are and whatever your weather is like, just ask you, be blessed.
To be a blessing to others.